And I had national security zone. On VAT, on vote, Johnny, it's true.
But you see, that is distinct for me from the subsequent disclosures relative to torture. For me, it is the high point of this unfolding drama. But there we have a certain difficulty, and I've raised it with CITI FM. I don't know if I have the right to mention the name of the person I spoke to, but I raised it, and he agreed that my concern was legitimate. He explained. You see, why is it that the disclosure of this reported or alleged torture did not come first? At the time it ought to have come. We are all newsmen. We know the worth of news, timing and everything. The gentleman was released, according to CITI FM sources, by 7:57. By 7:50 he was at the office. Then he was asked to go home. Why? No debriefing? Even though they didn't send him on the official assignment as we've been told by Bernard. It is your employee, your reporter. And if he comes, he's been released. No interview, nothing. And he goes home 24 hours later before we are told this most serious violation, if indeed it happened. You know, you say you believe it, and I know why you say so, because of the culture of it.
Okay, so yeah, we're gonna deal with it, isn't it? Okay, so that was Kweku Baako speaking. So we go straight to his article on the screen, and we'll analyze what he said. After that, Manasseh Azuri also wrote about it, and we will deal with that as well. Good evening, Ghana, and we are still live. Okay, so yeah, the article, Kweku Baako's article, is ready, and is here. Okay, it goes as follows. A journalist is released from security custody after 5 hours. He proceeds to his workplace after his release and is instructed to go home by his superiors and return to work the next day. The next day, the journalist Caleb Kuda is on air in his own station, into brackets, alleging that he had been tortured whilst in security custody prior to his release. Okay, this is Kweku Baako's account of the situation. We move on. Prior to his disclosure of having been subjected to physical assault / torture, one of his superiors appeared on a major television network to recount what had happened to him, the arrested journalist, and the events which had transpired at the station of the media house, the workplace of the arrested journalist, earlier that day. Okay, referring obviously to Bernard Avile's interview with us here that evening. Okay. No hint of the reported physical assault or torture was / is communicated to the audience of the program or the nation. Apparently, this was because the physical assault or torture was unknown to the superiors of the arrested / incarcerated journalist at that point in time. And this was because the journalist was instructed to go home and rest and return to the workplace the next day. What if the effects of the reported torture had taken its toll on him the night before? So Kweku Baako is asking a question that, okay, if the arrested journalist did not indicate that he had been tortured, or that information was not taken from him, and he went home, and as a result of the torture, it took a toll on him, something major could have happened. Okay, let's move on. He returns / returned to work the following day to reveal that he was physically assaulted and tortured while in security custody. And this is reported to his station's radio and television network. Some citizens and analysts raise issues and cast doubt on the new twist because of the delay in disclosure of the physical assault. For me, the allegation of physical assault or torture is a more significant feature of the unfolding saga, and for all of us too. I called the management of the station and indicated that the omission of delayed disclosure could have the effect of undermining the credibility of the subsequent disclosure and provide some skeptics and cynics with the basis to cast doubt on the significant disclosure. This decision not to run with the decision, he says, not to run with the story of the physical assault or torture timeously was explained to me. I am told that there were good reasons for the delay, emotional trauma among other reasons. I respectfully disagreed. He said, I respectfully disagreed. Subsequently, I appear on a high-profile program, Joy FM's high-profile flagship news file, and articulate the view that the management's decision to delay disclosure was or is not the best practice or idea, and that it could reinforce the view that the physical assault or torture story was an afterthought or not factual. I did not categorically say the torture story was an afterthought or not factual. Okay. In such matters, it helps if and when the victim of the alleged or reported physical assault or torture gets a medical examination / report early. Talk to lawyers and ask about the principle of contemporaneity in litigation in our courts of competent jurisdiction and or established inquiries. Going home to bath and report to work the following day or days could undermine the sanctity of evidence needed to make a case. Ask the lawyers. Okay, let's move on. This was and is, in essence, the thrust of my submission on the physical assault or torture aspect of the unfolding story on Newsfile today. Nothing more, nothing less. Fortunately, he says, the host of the program, Samson Ayenini, indicated there are some eye-ear witness accounts which could help in dealing with the matter under reference. And I expressed my happiness with that detail, which was unknown to me. I support the call for a probe by either an independent committee or the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice. That is non-negotiable. Unfortunately, he says, I am unable to help those who do selective listening or hearing of my submission and predictably seek to attack me for not saying what they want to hear or use their language, their choice of words. I am not an intellectual coward, and I will never be one. I'm not perfect, and I never claim perfection. I speak my mind, driven by my conscience, conviction, and commitment. Only posterity and history can judge and vindicate me or otherwise. Long live Nkrumah's Ghana. Okay, so after Kweku Baako spoke, then came Manasseh Azuri, who also wrote. We'll do a content analysis of that one as well. You know, the Manasseh is a former reporter at GEG FM, and recently we took issue with him on this program for the Lighthouse Matter and a way of doing journalism for the Fourth Estate. But nonetheless, let's have a look at what he said. Some of us spotted the lapses in CITI FM's approach to Caleb's arrest the same day. So he says that there were lapses. He's making a value judgment, that there were lapses in CITI FM's approach. Let's go on. But that does not cast doubt on the account of Caleb. The fact that the story of his assault was not told immediately does not mean it didn't happen. Yes, the fact that Caleb's account was not told immediately does not mean it didn't happen. But this is the problem I have. You know, if you look at Kweku Baako's article, he gave cogent explanations why the fact that it was not told immediately can undermine it. He didn't say it didn't happen, but the fact that it was not told immediately has an effect. And I will urge that when people are writing articles, you have to be scholarly about it. The fact that the account was not told immediately, it has an effect. It has ramifications. So you need to put out the ramifications, and then you can tell us your side of the story. So you analyze it, you say, so I disagree with this. Where he says that the fact that it didn't happen immediately does not mean it didn't happen. It is too elementary. It's too basic. You have to go beyond that, as Kweku Baako did. It didn't happen could mean so and so, but I take this view, etc., etc. You have to tell the audience and do the pros and cons before you come and tell us why you are taking a position and advance your position based on evidence. So let's move on, though. Apart from the assault, a number of basic details were also left out in CITI FM's initial report, which I called to draw someone's attention to get it fixed. Let's hear that again. Apart from the assault, a number of basic details were also left out in CITI FM's initial report, which I called to draw someone's attention to get it fixed. Okay. I was compelled to write an article and publish it the following day when I still hadn't seen that from the stage. That's been, I'm sure, the correction that he was advocating. That's from the station and it appeared as though Caleb had committed a crime. Let me take that again. It says, I was compelled to write an article and publish it the following day, when I still hadn't seen that. Not so sure what is the that, but I guess he said there were some lapses that he was talking about. So, hadn't seen that from the station, and it appeared as though Caleb had committed a crime. It's not so clear, but let's move on. But that does not in any way suggest that the assault angle was an afterthought. It's a bit convoluted, but I think we can get it. So he said that he observed the lapses, obviously. He called somebody and thought that these lapses should be corrected, told the person maybe what should be done. After a while, he noticed that his suggestions had not been taken, or that he had not seen evidence that his suggestions had been taken, and therefore the gaps had not been filled. He proceeded to write an article, and he's saying that the fact that these things didn't happen does not mean that the assault on Caleb was an afterthought. Let's move on. Some of us have worked in establishments, and sometimes in order to keep employer-employee relationships, we allow certain things to slide. So, not every detail may make it to the public domain, but that should not in any way affect the account of Caleb. Any such grounds to discredit the young man is sinking sand. Okay, let's deal with this one. He says, some people have worked in establishments, and sometimes to keep the employer relationship, you allow certain things to slide. Okay. Certain things including assault by national security, certain things including being beaten up, where you have to put the evidence across, where, as Kweku Baako said, the lawyers and all the professionals, the doctors will tell you that the earlier you get a medical report, the better. The earlier you say it, the better. When people receive threatening phone calls and all of that, they are expected to publish it to the police. The earlier you do it, the better. So I'm not so sure about, not every detail may make it to the public domain, but that should not in any way affect the account. No, it shouldn't affect the account, but here we want to solve the problem, Honorable Azuri. We want to solve the problem. We want to solve the problem so we don't let things slide. And there's no crime and there's no inhibition in publishing it or talking about it. All we are saying is that if it's done early, it aids the evidence. If it's done early, it aids the evidence. All the time, always and every time, it must be done early. And everyone will tell you that. So if one does not do it early, we assume that he knew that he should do it early, and therefore the questions are raised why, knowing that he should have done it early, he was unable to do it early. That's the question. Those are the questions being raised. Not just questions being raised to discredit Caleb's story, but questions being raised to tell journalists that these are the steps you need to take when these things happen. It's an important question, and it is also on the basis of the text, the narrative, that if it's not done early, it undermines the narrative. It reduces the standard of proof. It undermines the standard of proof. It clearly does that. It doesn't mean that Caleb will not be able to establish it, or we cannot establish that Caleb was attacked, but it raises the standard of proof. It undermines the effort and raises the standards of proof, because if right from there you walk out and say, look, they beat me up, look at my black eye, and you go to the hospital and you have the report, you would have established a better sense of credibility for the narrative. So that's correct, Honorable Azuri. Okay, so let's move on and hear what else he says. I trust Caleb's account. There's no problem with it. I think we all do. Those who deleted the evidence and leaked part of it to Asase Radio are those we should doubt. Those who claimed that not even one vehicle was left there, which turned out to be false, are those we should doubt. I don't know what he's talking about, one vehicle was left there, etc. Okay, so he says, those who deleted evidence and leaked part of it to Asase Radio, I don't see anything wrong with the leakage, and we'll show you that video again if it's ready. There's a video of Caleb. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see what he's talking about. You're an investigative journalist. You thrive on leaks. So the video was leaked to Asase Radio, hopefully to assist the investigations. It wasn't only Asase Radio. Star FM also broadcasted. I don't find anything wrong with the leaked video, because the video says some part of it. So we have to see the other part of it. And when investigations begin, as they have begun now, it may be obligatory on the side of the national security to produce the entire video that it sees from the guy's phone, because the material is important for us to understand why what happened. So I don't know whether he's critical of the leaked video or he's critical of, he says, those who claim that not even one vehicle was left there, which turned out to be false, are those we should doubt. So he basically means believe Caleb and doubt national security, but he hasn't provided enough evidence and he hasn't provided enough thought processes to lead us to that view. And that's what I talk about journalism. And I'm talking about Manasseh because I've talked about the day and the fourth estate and the way they do their stories. This account that is written here, it doesn't give you sufficient thought processes that should lead you to any conclusion. Even if the conclusion is biased, there has to be thought processes, a chronological presentation of the analysis, the thesis, the antithesis, that will send you to a certain conclusion. You don't find that here. And I talk about them all the time. They're always catching you. Well, okay. I read Kweku Baako's account. It was deliberate. I read it for a certain reason. And I'm reading this one as well. The content of the filming was so sensitive that both Caleb and Zoe had to be arrested and the content deleted from their phones. Why would part of it be leaked to Asase Radio? Okay, that's a legitimate question. That's a legitimate question. He says, why should we leak only part of it? That's a legitimate question. That you have a video, your national security, you have a video. You have leaked some and you have kept some. Which one are you keeping and why are you keeping it? That's a legitimate question. And I don't know when the supposed unregistered vehicles belonging to NAM1 were seized. But some of the vehicles I see in the video leaked by Asase Radio have been there since 2017 thereabout. Yeah, this is nothing. The second paragraph actually means nothing. It says, I don't know when. If you don't know when they were seized, the NAM1 story had been building since 2017. So I don't know about NAM1, but there's allegations or suggestions that the vehicles that you see, the Land Cruisers, could belong to NAM1. And he's saying that he doesn't know when but if you don't know when they were seized, then why are you saying that? It says, but some of the vehicles there, I see in the leaked video by Asase Radio, have been there since 2017. But he doesn't even provide any evidence why it's there since 2017. Maybe he has seen them. But NAM1 story is since 2017. I mean, the issue about NAM1 and his issues with government is since 2017. So I'm really not sure. Anyway, there are also expensive and luxury Mercedes-Benz vehicles that have been parked under the shed for 4 years. I'm very familiar with that facility because I visited the place not at least 6 times. Not least, I believe he's writing. Not at least 6 times between 2017 and 2020, including going there to film the Maslog vehicles when all the 350 vehicles were still abandoned. Okay, that's the story about the Maslog matter. Let's move on. The story is still unfolding. What we should be asking the national security and the government is the outcome of the investigations into the arrest. Yes, detention and alleged torture of the modernghana.com journalist. What crime did they commit? Why were they arrested? And what happened to the investigation? Okay, that's a fair comment, and the Freedom of Information Act is available. So yes, we can ask the question of the Modern Ghana journalists. I don't know much about that story, but yes, there was a story that Modern Ghana journalists were arrested on a Sunday, something like that. It was reported that they had put something on their online portal and it was injurious to national security, or so national security said, and they picked them up. Okay, so I think that's the end of the story. Now let's come back to our own story. Very short. Let me do it very quickly. It's 11 o'clock. I'll do it in 2 minutes. Okay. So what we are saying tonight is that national security needs to be reorganized. We know that. But we have been saying that for a long time. The concern we have is that we have had a culture from 1958, since the days of General Bauer, who was running the Osagyefo own guard, General Bauer and others, who led the Preventive Detention Act. That's where we have had it. Now, let me show you something about the Preventive Detention Act. Let them put the laws on it there right now. Very quickly, let me show you the laws. Section 2.1 of the Preventive Detention Act said that the president may, you can see it now, order the detention of any person who is a citizen of Ghana if satisfied that the order is necessary to prevent that person from acting in a manner prejudicial to A, the defense of Ghana, B, the relations of Ghana with other countries, or C, the security of the state. Security of the state is so broad. This is how we started. This law was part of our books in 1958, 1 year after independence. General Bauer and the others carried out this law. Eventually, so many people were arrested by the PDA. That's where we began the culture. The national security was used as a state apparatus to to criminalize other citizens. National security is important, but we have to begin to decide whether national security is a state apparatus or it's a government apparatus. So government being the government of MPP or NDC, the state being the state, the police, the military is a state apparatus, the police is a state apparatus, the church is part of a state apparatus, government apparatus, the New Patriotic Party, ministers of state, etc. That's government apparatus. What's national security? Is it state or it is government? How was it applied in 1958? It was applied as a state apparatus used as a government. And then came the people who overthrew Kwame Nkrumah, and they set up national security and they went after the Nkrumah people. Then we came into the 70s and a champion came, military government, and it was national security, went after students at the University of Ghana, beat them up, shot them, killed them, beat up doctors, and beat up demonstrations, national security. Then came the short-lived Rawlings Lehman administration. A little bit, not much was said at those days, but J.J. Rawlings and his elements said that national security was used to hound them. Captain Chikata says that national security was used to hound him during the period of Lehman, because the Lehman national security elements were suspicious that J.J. wanted to conduct a coup. So they exaggerated all of that, and they went after Rawlings, and he felt that he wasn't a safe man. Why? Because national security was used against J.J. Rawlings and Captain Chikata. Okay, so they staged a coup confirming the fears of national security. Never mind, the establishment proclamation of the PNDC is done, so they are a regular government. Captain Kojo Chikata and Fly Lieutenant Rawlings used national security to hound the people of Ghana. Same national security. So this is the anthropological culture and DNA of Ghana's national security since 1958. That's our story tonight, and this Caleb situation gives us an opportunity to deal with this in a major way. Because if you go to America, even if you read storybooks like those of Jeffrey Archer, people finish Harvard University and they want to go and work for the FBI. People go to Harvard to study political science because they want to be an FBI agent. People want to be an agent for the Federal Bureau of Investigations and for the Central Intelligence Agency. Intelligence organizations are not criminal organizations. Intelligence organizations are not organizations that you go there to go and beat people up. Intelligence organizations recruit the highest standard of young people so that they can think intelligently about the future of the country. Food shortages is an intelligence issue. Hospital, what we're talking about, hospital shortages is a matter of national security and national intelligence. Road is a matter of national security and national intelligence. The conduct of Ghanaians, the entertainment of Ghanaians on Friday, Saturday, Sunday is a matter that national security should have documents on. So national security is not regime security. That's what we do in Ghana. National security is, for us, is regime security. That's how it has been. So it's not about what has happened today. It's not about what happened yesterday, but it is an anthropological culture in the DNA of the national security that must be broken. It's not going to be easy to break it. It's not going to be easy, especially when we have a partisan situation today. Larry Bevelo Latte, the former national security commander, whatever he's called, recently was at the university, and I happened to be there that day when Professor Aite, the vice chancellor of the university, was frightened about national security's presence at the University of Ghana. What did they go to do? To destroy a gate, an entrance that was being built. National security. Bevelo Latte was leading it. They went to the University of Ghana to pull down a gate that the vice chancellor was building because they thought the vice chancellor was disrespectful. National security. So we move on into after the Rawlings days. Then came J. Ekufuor, and there was Francis Poku. I have to make this intervention. During the Francis Poku era, and then in our flyer, we put up coffee shop. We put coffee shop there. A group of young journalists who used to meet, well, they were young, Kweku Baako and others, okay. They were senior journalists, I wasn't one of them, who used to meet with Francis Poku at Australia House. And the whole concept of the coffee shop journalist, Laboni coffee shop journalist, and Francis Poku was to help to create a new national security where journalists will not be picked up like the way Kweku Baako and Kwesi Pratt and Haruna Atta were picked up in the era before. So that was maybe that was the only positive intervention in trying to restructure our national security in an informal way. And so that's why maybe during the Ekufuor time we didn't hear these national security issues happen, because as long as Francis Poku was there, his interaction with the media was regular, and that's also part of national security. For national security to know what the journalists have, what story they have, etc., etc. So that, I have to say, was a positive intervention. And then came Professor Amos. I've talked about Bevelo Latte already, and now we have Albert Kandapa and all of these things we're hearing. So ladies and gentlemen, let us understand that this national security issue, it requires a national conference that must have the overused word in Ghana, stakeholders. who can now think through, and when we say we think through, we are ending up in drafting a law that can be applied. We think through a process and design a national security to look like the MI6 or MI5 in England, or to look like the Federal Bureau of Investigations in America, or to look like some serious important national security of a third world country that thinks about security in terms of food security, economic security, market security, road security, entertainment security, cyber security, data protection. That's what national security should be thinking about, and so we recruit our best people there to go and do these things. National security is not supposed to be against us. I end by referring you to a book. It's by a guy called Bayat. He says, Criminalization of the African State. Maybe I'll get the copy of the book for you. You can see it. Criminalization of the African State. It's by Bayat. He addresses these matters in it. So I'm sorry about Caleb Kuda. I'm excited about all the inquiries that are coming up. National Media Commission is doing an inquiry. Hopefully the Ghana Journalists Association will do an inquiry. National Security is doing an inquiry. Let's see, give all of them 2 months. Come back to this touch screen and see what has happened. But what we need to do is to deconstruct the anthropological DNA in the construct of the national security. My case is done. Thank you very much for watching. Good night. We'll be back on Thursday.